everyone, and welcome to a bonus segment of the Brothers Take. My name is Chris, and today, for my birthday, I wanted to do a little entry on something that's not video game related, but another thing I'm very passionate about, which is I wanted to do a ranking of my favorite Linkin Park albums. For anyone who doesn't know, Linkin Park is my favorite band of all time, and whenever it comes around to this time of year, I always get really back into listening to them. They're really the band that got me into music. They shaped a lot of my music tastes. And I grew up listening to them, and I've loved all of their work, all of their albums. But I thought it'd be really fun to go through my personal ranking of the albums, the seven main studio albums. So this won't include, say, the remix albums like Recharged or Reanimation, and it won't include any like the live albums, Live in Texas or Project Revolution or any of that kind of stuff. It's really just the studio albums from Hybrid Theory all the way up to One More Light. So I'm going to do a ranking of them, and maybe from each one talk about what my favorite track from that particular album is, right? This is not like a definitive list of like, these are the seven best, period, for everybody. It's my personal top, my ranking. So this, you might agree, but you might also disagree. And I'd love people to, get in touch and have a discussion about it if you're into Linkin Park. And if you're not, or if you haven't heard all these albums, I highly recommend all of them. There's so many different music styles that this band have touched on, so many different genres that they blended together so well. And I do think that there's something in there for everybody. I've said it before. We did do a bonus segment before on Hybrid Theory as an album to celebrate its 20th anniversary last year. So that was actually a segment on the Brothers Take, so that's worth checking out, where we all talked about it. But pretty much anyone who's ever listened to the album, I've never heard anyone say that they didn't in some way enjoy it. And I do think that there's something in there for everyone to enjoy from Linkin Park, whether you're into heavier music, whether you're into hip hop, whether you're into pop, whether you're into electronic music. All that stuff is in there at some point, and they're an incredibly talented and versatile band. But without further ado, I'd like to get into my personal rankings of these albums. So starting at number 7 is actually the album that they made with Chester, which was One More Light. This is probably not surprising for some people, but other people, like this could be your favorite album, or maybe you rank it much higher. For me personally, what this was is just this kind of music, the poppier kind of music, just didn't really speak to me all that much. It's just not my kind of sound. I think the songs, there's a lot of them that I do like, and they do them well. They're well written songs, but at 10 tracks, it felt like a pretty short album. It's also the only album where they actually named it after one of the tracks on the album. And that to me kind of distracted away from the overall body of work. I kind of prefer when an album has a name that's not a featured track. It doesn't put any emphasis on any one track then, and therefore just gives the whole body of work something. And also the artwork on the front, it's a good photo. It's a really good photo. But at the same time, it just, to me, I look at it and it makes me think of things like Avicii or something. Like it really doesn't scream Linkin Park to me. So just this was the album that felt the most polarizing to me, and just didn't feel I just didn't gel with its identity. It didn't work for me, but it might work for other people. And I suppose the album became bittersweet in a way, or it took on some different meanings after, not long after it, we obviously lost Chester. Some of the songs changed meaning. But I will say that my favorite track, even before any of that happened, my favorite track from this album is actually the title track, One More Light. I think it's a really well-written song. It's really well mixed. It's well produced. And it just it sounds as good live as it does on the album. And I think that's really cool. Rank number 6 for me is Living Things. From here on up, to be honest, they get closer and closer, to be honest, in terms of like so I don't want people thinking that, oh, you must really dislike Living Things. And I love all these albums. This is another album that I love. I love how much variety there is on it. And I particularly loved, when I heard it, hearing a lot more kind of back and forth on tracks. with Mike and Chester, that kind of old school formula of Mike rapping verses and Chester, laying down the choruses and then screaming on the bridges and stuff. There was a lot more of that on this album, but there was also some really cool standout tracks, like Roads Untraveled or Skin to Bone, that had kind of a folky vibe to them as well, which I thought was really, really cool and well implemented. There's some great songs on here. Roads Untraveled is one of my favorites, but I think the standout track for me personally was Lost in the Echo. It's the first song on the album. It opens up really strongly, and as well, it's one of the one. It just kind of reinforced that kind of old identity, but in a new way. It felt fresh, but it felt familiar, and that really stood out to me. So I really, really, really like that track. It's my favorite off that album, and I really like the artwork on Living Things. I think it's a really cool album cover. So that's rank number 6. Rank number 5 is Minutes to Midnight. This is an album that, like, I love listening to it. There's some tracks that for me are a little bit forgettable, or like I wouldn't keep coming back to them. In Between is one, for example. But this album is mixed really well. The recording quality on it is fantastic. I'm not crazy about the album cover personally, but I really like the name, The Minutes to Midnight. I think it's a cool title, and it's alluding to a big change or something happening. I think that's really cool. And this was like the big shift. Like, this was the first time Linkin Park were particularly polarizing. I think, like, whatever fan base they'd built with Hybrid Theory and Meteora, Minutes to Midnight was the first time they really challenged the fan base and started to split up a good bit, or they started to lose some fans but gain new ones. But they broke new grounds. It's, there's some phenomenal songs on this album. Given Up, What I've Done, Shadow of the Day, Leave Out All the Rest. Even, like, I actually do like some of those slower songs. I think they're well done. Some of them have some U2 and Radiohead inspiration in there, I think. So it's really, really cool. The standard track for me on this one is Bleed It Out, though. I think it's just so much fun. And I think they know that too, because, like, they started finishing all their concerts with Bleed It Out. It's just, like, every time it comes on, it's a banger of a track. So that's my standout for Minutes to Midnight. Rank number 4. I think people are going to disagree with me on this, but you have to understand that when I say this, I love all of these albums, and it starts to get closer and closer. And, I might change my mind from time to time, but as it stands, at rank number 4 is Meteora, which is a phenomenal album with some great, great, great songs. Breaking the Habit is a big standout for me. Somewhere I Belong is another big standout for me. I actually really like the hip-hop track Nobody's Listening. It might not be for everyone, but I think it's pretty cool. And Lying From You. Like, this is a great album. As an album listening experience, it's more that I like this collection of songs as opposed to it as a album straight through. So I could listen to this, on shuffle, or I could listen to it in other playlists and stuff. But and I do like listening to it the whole way through, but it doesn't always seem like it's like a perfect album experience all the time. Sometimes I might, like, skip a track, like Easier to Run. Sometimes it's like, it depends on my mood, and I might skip one. And for me, a perfect album is one where you never want to skip a track. Not saying I don't like Easier to Run. I like all the songs on this album, but it's just sometimes if my mood's not there, I can kind of give one or two a miss. But ultimately, this is a great album. And the artwork is pretty cool. It's kind of iconic, and it just looks like artists kind of making something. The standard track for me, though, on this one is Faint. That's probably no surprise. Well, I maybe for other people it might be Numb, but for me it's absolutely Faint. Faint is actually one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. Might be my favorite Linkin Park song, all in all. So, but obviously this is not a ranking of the songs. This is a ranking of the albums as a full body work. A rank number 3 is actually The Hunting Party. I fucking love this album. And I think it's probably the most underrated album. I think on a lot of other lists, it might be rank 7 for a lot of people. They might even prefer the more polished sound of One More Light. But this album came out at a time where I think I needed it. It was raw, it was visceral. Hearing these long, non-radio friendly songs The guitar work on it, the drums. Rob Borden on the drums kills it on this album. There's lots of guitar solos, which aren't, it's not a normal sound for Linkin Park. And there's so many songs that for me are absolute standouts. Until It's Gone is like harkens back to say Meteora days. Keys to the Kingdom is such a strong starter for me. All for Nothing featuring Paige Hamilton is a great song. Even Guilty All the Same with Rakim is a great song. It's just like a fun time like the whole way through, and it's well structured, I think, as an album. And you also have like those little interlude bits where you can hear the band talking and like like sounding like, you know, they're jamming something out, or insights into the studio. It just really feels like a band album, and that's, I really like that. The standout track for me on this one is A Line in the Sand, which is the final song on the album. What a finisher. Holy crap. It's awesome. It's an amazing song. And it really perfectly captures the journey you've been on leading up to that point. Spot number 2. I think this is going to surprise people with the 2 that are left. But actually, spot number 2 for me is Hybrid Theory. Now, I fucking love this album. I think this is a soft spot for everyone who's into Linkin Park. It's probably number 1 for most people. This is obviously the album that got me into Linkin Park, and so it has a very special place in my heart. There's no song worth skipping for me, ever. This is just a great time every time you put it on. The artwork is amazing. The title, I think the album title is probably the best that they have. Hybrid Theory is just, there's something iconic about it, and it just perfectly speaks to what the album and what the mantra of the band is all about. It's a perfect introduction to them. And I've been to see Linkin Park 3 times, right? My first concert, their last concert. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with the future of the band, but as it stands, their last concert, certainly Chester's last ever concert. And then I also went to Download, where they performed the entirety of Hybrid Theory live, and it's the best concert I've ever been to. It was sick. I absolutely loved it. This album is very special for me. Up there behind me is the 20th anniversary edition collection, which I have to get. This album is special to me. And look, if I was to name the standout tracks, I'd be naming them all. You know, it'd be, you know, One Step Closer, Points of Authority, Runaway, you know, A Place for My Head, Pushing Me Away. In the end, the whole album is amazing. But the absolute standout track for me, my favorite track on the album, is Paper Cut. Every time it starts, I can't get enough of it. I fucking love Paper Cut. Which means that rank number 1 for me is 1,000 Suns, which is not only my favorite Linkin Park album, this is my favorite album of all time. It changed the way I looked at albums. I previously, when I was younger, looked at albums as, I'm not saying other albums don't have this capability, but this was just the first one that did it for me. I previously looked at other albums as, you know, collections of songs. And if I like all the songs, great. This was different. This had like, you couldn't skip a track. It bled into the next one. There was like a running theme throughout. There was callbacks. There were so many genres. There was so much style in it. It was less about catchy hooks and more about a musical experience. And I got the special edition. And at the time it came out a DVD, which is sort of like the making of the album. And just gave me a whole different insight into how artists could approach music and how music might work. I fucking love this album so much. It really, like, I ended up doing like a music tech course, just purely as a hobby or out of interest. But it's because of this album. I just really wanted to work on music in like a creative way because of what this album did. It's so special, and I actually hold it up. I kind of judge if I listen to an album now. Not that I want to hear the same thing again, but I just thinking about it as like, you know, like the song placement or how they start an album and how they end an album. I find all those things now very important. The structure of an album, the placement, the pacing of an album, all that stuff, and it really came from this album, 1,000 Suns, which if I put it on, I don't skip a track. I have to get through the whole thing because that's just the way it's designed. And as an album, for me, it's definitely Linkin Park's best piece of work. The standout, I mean, there's a few amazing songs on this again. You know, Waiting for the End, The Catalyst, When They Come for Me, Wretches and Kings. These are all great songs. But my favorite track on this particular album is Blackout. I love this song. Absolutely love it. Probably another underrated Linkin Park song. But I just love the Chester's screams are amazing on it. I love that piano bridge when it turns into a totally different kind of song in a way. I love that 8-bit dance theme in it. Hearing screaming over like a dance beat, which is something I'd never heard before previous to this. Not saying that it'd never been done before, but I hadn't heard it. And it blew my mind. It's a catchy song and it pumps me up every time. I fucking love it. So those are my rankings for the Linkin Park albums. But I'd love to hear what other people's are and what's your favorite song from each album. Or if you just, even if you don't want to get into a ranking thing, if you just want to tell me some of your favorite Linkin Park songs, that's great. And if you've never checked them out, I highly recommend them. I think they're great, obviously, because they're my favorite band. I'm biased, but I absolutely love Linkin Park, and I highly recommend them to anyone to go check them out. So if you listen to this on audio platforms, you can touch base with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take. Please let us know your rankings of the Linkin Park albums and also what's your favorite Linkin Park song. If you're checking this on YouTube, please do jump down into the comments. Let us know, again, your rankings of the Linkin Park albums and what's your favorite track off each album. If you enjoyed this, you can also give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell so you know we put out future content like this, which was a bonus segment, has nothing to do with gaming, and, you know, could happen anytime. You don't want to miss that kind of stuff out. Thank you very much for checking this out. We'll talk to you guys next time.